whilst that anthem was being played, the Springbok side had just gathered to one side in a circle at attention. They now pull themselves together. They're just having that final little squeezy-weezy before we get on with this test match. 31 test matches played between these two countries. 22 won by South Africa and 9 won by the Wallabies. Australia will be playing from left to right. And I fear will be... In fact, it's quite interesting that the Australian side has formed to one side of the field and the Springboks to the other, so we're just going to sort out. It looks like South Africa could be the side to kick off. The referee, the same man who blew the second test, Mr. Ed Morrison from England, blowing his 10th international today. Now the Wallabies come over to this, the grandstand side of the field. We're about 100 metres up off the ground. We have a real bird's eye view of this game. James Small, big moment for James Small. He was terribly, terribly disappointed at having been sent off. And the fact that he was just given one game suspension proves that tribunal was headed by Joe French, the Australian Rugby Union president. And they just gave him that one game suspension. Having watched this, a little word. Ed Morrison just shaking James Small's hand. A nice touch, Gavin.
Yes, lovely touch, I think, and the ascendancy in these first 10 minutes is going to be vital for both sides, just to get that necessary ascendancy up front in particular, and it'll be interesting to see just how organised and how committed the Australian side will be today, because one feels that they probably wouldn't be able to play as well as they played last week as Joel Stransky gets the kick-off.
Gareth Morgan goes very high for Australia, makes a good catch to bring it back on his side. Jones, as he so often does, just directing operations back to Campese, who so often takes up the kicking position on defence. Takes a lot of the strain off young Scotty Bowen, who's just playing in his third test today. So this was a vital area for South Africa. Interesting that they're taking a two-man line out. Rudy Schmidt cleans up. Tim Gavin was the man doing the tackling. Robert de Preer so often happens with the early hoist. Campese under to Olivia's charging. Very solid by Campese. Well played in front of his home crowd. This could be his last test match, and to that of Nick Farr-Jones. And he will have really enjoyed that punt.
You spoke of the line-outs and the importance of South Africa. A very, very poor effort last week in the line-outs, and they've certainly been working hard behind closed doors this week on their game plan in the line-outs.
Well, not enough men falling back there. There were too many men in the Australian line-out. Robert de Preer again, looking for space on the far side. This is Roebuck. Roebuck deciding to kick that ball down the middle of the field. Now Uli Schmidt on the charge. He's got Olivia with him. Good tackle there by Damian Smith, who's a very good defender. Now Joel Stransky gets his first touch of the ball. Campese made to do a lot of work all the time in the world to punt it back. Hasn't found his touch. Jacques Olivier, Hubert, his first touch. Just for a momentarily looked to run there, but has found a very good touch down this side touchline.
Well, the big question, of course, is whether South Africa will change their game plan from the first and second test with the inclusion of Andre Joubert. And our information is that there are possibilities that South Africa will spread the ball wider than they have thus far and utilize the strengths which exist for them.
So the first put in at the line-out by Australia, Phil Kearns. Gareth Morgan is at the front. McCall gets the touchdown. Farr-Jones, Bowen. Only 20 years old is Scotty Bowen. Nicely taken by Andre Joubert. Had help there from... Tiaan Strauss it was, who was blown up for obstruction. Penalty to Australia. And Tiaan Strauss, I'm sure that wasn't intentional, just ran in front of Andre Joubert.
There's Joubert with a very clean catch, and Tiaan Strauss in an unfortunate situation there, just finding himself with that obstruction. And Marty Roebuck, who's kicked reasonably well for Australia in the test series thus far, has a longer kick than normal. We were looking at the surface a little bit early on as well, and it's a pretty firm and hard surface. There was wind predicted for today, but it looks pretty much like it's quiet out there. So a lengthy kick for Marty Roebuck, who's a very accurate close-in goal kicker, and obviously very vital psychological blow that Australia would need if this kick goes over.
Well, Marty Roebuck, who set up a record in the second test of 13 points. That was the most a Wallaby has ever scored against South Africa. And he's turned back. There's no mistake in that one. Touch judges just confer with each other just for a moment as they just make sure that both agree that that was straight through the uprights. And that man, Bob Dwyer, will... Well, he's a tense gentleman at these games.
Met al die verdediging wat hulle moes uitoefen.
Australië wat vir hom gaan beheer, de Scott Bowen, Jason Little, Tim Horan, is 'n lang aangeer. Michael is geskap en James Small wat die bal in die hande het van Andre Joubert. Uit vir Jacques Olivier aan sy binnekant, dis Andre Joubert. Skep na James Small, hier kom sy paadjie door lyn toe. Teen die verloop van die speler.
Ons sal hom weer sien nou uit 'n ander hoek. Uit 'n ander hoek, James Small. Nou kyk net hoe mooi gee hy die aangee vir Andre Joubert. Andre Joubert deur die halwe gaping, dan weer buitekant na James Small. En geen tyd vir Jason Little en Tim Horan om te keer. Die man wat saam met James Small gehardloop daar was Jacques Olivier van die linkervleuel af. En dis weer 'n bewys van hoe hard Jacques Olivier werk op die veld. Hy staan nie net op die linkervleuel en wag vir die bal, maar hy is altyd op soek na ekstra werk en natuurlik ook 'n uitstekende verdediger.
56 punte, Smitoer aangetekend tot dusver, 15 punte verlede Saterdag op Ballymore, die tweede toets, Joel Stransky, wat maak jy met hierdie en hy hou vir hom fyn dop, die Nieu-Zeelandse grensregter sien, hy steen die reg op paal vas, maar Suid-Afrika het punt op die tellbord.
Dus daar is 'n bietjie bekommernis met Pieter Mulle, hy het daar gesit op die halflyn nou met daai kniebesering van hom en hy het 'n Afrikaanse hoofpunt